Rams had given Stafford permission to speak to other teams about potential contracts. Those talks eventually led the two sides back to each other. In news into SportsCenter, Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford has agreed to a restructured deal to stay in Los Angeles.
Every single year, there's one major free agency move, one major signing that pretty much serves as the domino that sets off all the other transactions in the NFL. And the first domino for this year's NFL offseason has officially fallen. So before we get to the content, we started a brand new baseball channel called Uni Diamond Talk. We're giving away 10 copies of MLB The Show 25 to a subscriber that turns on their notifications on that channel. Our first upload is going to be going up next week over there, and I'm really excited about it. Now that we get all that out of the way, today's video is sponsored by Arena Club. If there's one feeling that I could recreate from childhood, it's a feeling of opening up a pack of cards and getting an ultra rare card right into my hands. Just the anticipation of what you could potentially pull is so exciting, and the possibilities are limitless. And now with slab packs from arenaclub.com, I can relive that today. With slab packs, it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price, and Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value. A complete view of all their possible cards and hit rates for each and every one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the game for their transparency, and after your pulls are revealed, they'll be immediately placed in your vault for safekeeping. Or you could trade and sell them. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform that you have to check out. And right now you can get 20% off of your first slab pack when you go to arenaclub.com/microphone and use my promo code Mikerophone. That's arenaclub.com/microphone and my promo code Mikerophone to get 20% off of your first slab pack. And thank you, Arena Club, for sponsoring today's video. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? We're in store for a pretty peculiar offseason this year. There isn't one major marquee free agent that is exciting many teams, but there are plenty of incredible trade candidates. You could get a generational edge rusher like Myles Garrett. You could potentially trade for DK Metcalf. But the one position of need that doesn't have that much depth in it this offseason is the most coveted in the entire NFL. If you happen to be a quarterback needy team this offseason, it might be a little difficult to find your long-term solution under center during this offseason. And there are multiple classes of QBs. You could either take a flyer on older veterans whose best years might be behind them, or were just in a terrible situation the year prior. Players like Aaron Rodgers, for instance, or Kirk Cousins, who I personally believe are just struggling coming off of major career-altering injuries at their age, and as a result, it's affected their play. You could take a flyer on younger journeyman QBs that have flashed potential, players like Justin Fields or Sam Darnold, or if you happen to be picking within the top 10 of this year's NFL draft, you could either trade up and try to select Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. But probably the most promising option that was left on the quarterback market was none other than the Los Angeles Rams starting QB Matthew Stafford. I honestly think we need to make a career piece on Matthew Stafford because I think he's one of the most underappreciated QBs in the entire NFL, primarily because his prime years were wasted away on an underperforming Detroit Lions team. Don't get me wrong, he had a few seasons where he was able to take the Lions to the playoffs, but there are just some seasons where he was absolutely prolific, and despite being prolific, he still wouldn't win a Pro Bowl. Matthew Stafford would eventually get traded during the 2021 offseason to the Los Angeles Rams in one of the most infamous deals in NFL history, and probably the biggest FU to Jared Goff ever. The Los Angeles Rams traded Jared Goff and 3 first-round picks in return for a 33-year-old Matthew Stafford. And to give you an idea of how significant these picks were, the Lions would get Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Sam Laporta as a result of this particular trade. And honestly, in any other scenario, we would say this is a gigantic overpay, but this one trade turned one of the biggest jokes in the NFL to a contender in the Detroit Lions, and it won the Los Angeles Rams a Super Bowl. And despite them losing a lot of their talent over the past couple of years, primarily Aaron Donald retiring a little prematurely, the Rams are still Super Bowl contenders. Now, over the past couple of years, Matthew Stafford has has still been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC. And after starting 1-4 this season, he was able to lead the Los Angeles Rams to a 10-6 record and eventually make it to the divisional round versus the Philadelphia Eagles, where he was one play away from potentially defeating the Philadelphia Eagles' ferocious defense. But during the offseason, the Los Angeles Rams decided that they were going to make some significant changes, primarily in the form of trading Matthew Stafford's #1 wide receiver in Cooper Kupp. Now, a Cooper Kupp trade hasn't happened yet, but Cooper Kupp was told outright by the Rams that they were going to trade him. Kelly Stafford has already mentioned how she's against this idea.
My husband, wants to win. He's not trying to put a team in a bad situation. Trading away of Cooper? I guess I'm just I'm confused. We were one play away from going to the NFC Championship. And I think if we go, we win. I want the respect for him that he deserves.
And for the most part, the Rams just simply don't have a choice here. I mean, Cooper Kupp isn't the same player he was in 2021 when he got the Triple Crown and was a key component of the Rams winning a Super Bowl. You can't make it to a Super Bowl when Cooper Kupp's cap number is $29.78 million and he's putting up consistent 700-yard seasons. And you have Puka Nacua, who's more than capable of having the offense built around him. So in that particular case, it's a no-brainer. But in Kelly Stafford's eyes, I guess this is perceived as the Rams being too cheap to pay one of their best players, but I personally think they're going to use that cap space to make upgrades to their team, primarily in the form of their offensive line. But the Rams didn't only want to cut costs there. The Rams were in a gigantic game of chicken with Matthew Stafford, where Matthew Stafford wanted a contract extension to play in his late 30s that would pay him about $50 million a year, which is, by the way, a huge discount. That would make him the 9th highest paid QB in the NFL, a fantastic deal for him and enough cap space to help the Los Angeles Rams make upgrades to their roster to potentially make another run for the Super Bowl. But the Rams were playing hardball with Stafford, and some of the stuff that they were saying was just crazy. I mean, for instance, according to Diana Rossini, the LA Rams are comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting QB if they decide to move on from Matthew Stafford. I don't think you guys remember how cooked Jimmy Garoppolo looked last time he was the starting QB for the Las Vegas Raiders. He literally had Devontae Adams campaigning against him. So saying that you're willing to move on from one of the best QBs in the NFC for Jimmy Garoppolo is crazy work. But also, the Rams were playing a gigantic game of chicken with Matthew Stafford. They're pretty much saying, hey, you could either come back here and sign a contract with us and continue competing in sunny Los Angeles, or you could try to sign a contract with the New York Giants or the Cleveland Browns or the Las Vegas Raiders. And here's where it gets crazy. Matthew Stafford was actually playing ball. And by the way, I wanted to talk about this because this part of the story we didn't really get to talk about much in our last video. But according to Ian Rappaport a few days ago, Raiders minority owner Tom Brady and Rams QB Matthew Stafford ran into each other at a ski resort in Montana, sources say. The meeting, unplanned, was not extensive or in-depth and did not include Brady hosting or recruiting Stafford, despite reports saying otherwise. So who is Rappaport referring to? Well, Jordan Schultz also came out and said Raiders minority owner Tom Brady recently hosted Rams QB Matthew Stafford at his home in Montana, where they spent time together and went skiing. Brady has been actively trying to convince Stafford to join the Raiders, and discussions are ongoing. Schultz also said, if you really think Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford just happened to run into each other at a ski resort in Montana, of all places, at the exact same time, I've got a bridge to sell you. They were together over the weekend, it happened, multiple teams are interested in Stafford, and Brady has been leading the charge to get him to the Raiders if the Rams decide to trade him. Now, apparently, Ian Rappaport would bump into Jordan Schultz following this, where they would bump into one another at an Indianapolis Starbucks. And I think the Inside the NBA squad does a remarkable job explaining what happened.
I'm in a good mood, man.
Why is that?
Well, because I was at Starbucks today. It's dangerous in there, Ernie.
We're in the presence of Jordan Schultz of Fox verbally accosted Ian Rappaport of NFL Media.
Yeah, accosted. Whooping his ass. That's what happened.
I've been knowing Jordan for a long time. Of course, his father's Howard Schultz. Hope you got it.
Ian. I got Ian in this one. Let them go first as a warm-up, then me and you will go.
So we had a little bit of a source-off over this, but at the end of the day, Matthew Stafford officially made his decision. So according to Adam Schefter, LA's quarterback is back. The Rams and Matthew Stafford have reached an agreement today on a restructured deal that keeps him in Los Angeles and quashes any and all trade speculation. The first significant offseason quarterback domino has fallen. Rappaport Rappaport continued to say that the Rams and QB Matthew Stafford can't quit each other just yet. The two sides are closing in on a deal for Stafford to return to LA. After talks with the Raiders and Giants, Stafford ends up taking less than he would have gotten elsewhere to stay. Whether Matthew Stafford returned to LA or was traded to another team was going to influence potential pending QB decisions with multiple NFL teams. Now that Stafford is slotted to LA, QB needy teams such as the Raiders, Steelers, Giants, and Browns can continue with their off-season QB plans. So I'm not necessarily surprised by this decision, because when you take a look at the other situations Matthew Stafford would be playing in, it'd be a gigantic downgrade in terms of lifestyle. You also have to take into consideration the amount Matthew Stafford would truly be getting paid post-taxes. If he was to go to New York, he's being taxed practically the same as he would in Los Angeles, so the difference in financial gain would be about $5 million following taxes for a significantly worse situation. If he really wanted to make money, he would have went to the Las Vegas Raiders, but then you're in the same division as the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Denver Broncos, who surprised everyone last year. So that's a huge downgrade as well, just for one gigantic payday. I feel like taking a pay cut to stay with the Rams not only gives him an opportunity to win another Super Bowl, but it's the most comfortable situation for him. You have Sean McVay as your head coach. You don't really have to learn anything new. The personnel for the most part is going to stay the same. You're in a relatively weak division as well, although a fairly inconsistent division, and there's no volatility, meaning there's a chance that Stafford could go to a new team, have to learn a new system, and just play like a shell of his former self. That isn't going to happen here. So as a result of this move, it looks like the New York Giants are now pivoting to Aaron Rodgers after failing to land Matthew Stafford, and the Giants have been discussing potentially signing Rodgers all week while in Indy. If you guys are ready for an Aaron Rodgers update, let me know in the comment section down below, and if you're a Rams fan, let me know how you guys feel about this new move. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.